Could we see a significant trade between the Senators and Coyotes? We're going to look over a possible scenario outlined by a former NHL player and current broadcaster. Plus, we have the latest trade talk around Patrick Kane, some updates on his situation. Could Kevin Hayes and the Flyers be on the move ahead of the deadline as well? Plus, we have updates on some top prospects around the NHL. We have another signing, news from the NHL waiver wire, and more details emerging on the Ottawa Senators situation. American Hockey League head coach Troy Mann. We'll discuss all that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a lot of news to cover this evening. Let's start first up with a signing in the Nashville Predators organization. They come to terms with left winger Cole Smith. Cole Smith's appeared in 42 games for the Preds this year, putting up 2 goals and 9 assists for 11 points. He's 27 years old, certainly a bit of a late bloomer. Doesn't have a ton of NHL experience, but he's been given another 1-year contract extension, 2-way deal, of course, at $750,000. So obviously they're happy with what they've seen so far in the 42 games, and they want to keep him around for at least another season. So good on Cole Smith. It goes another prime example of perseverance and kind of sticking with your goals of making it in the pros, if that's really what you're aiming for. Obviously, we see a lot of players sometimes do make it, even if you're 25, 26, 27 years old. It's never too late to get your first taste of NHL experience. We also have news from the NHL waiver wire. I guess it's not really waiver news per se, but Adam Ernie, of course, who got cleared with the Detroit Red Wings yesterday, has been officially demoted down to the American Hockey League. The Red Wings are making room on their roster to recall Philip Zadina, who's been down in the AHL in a conditioning stint after a long absence due to injury, and Jonathan Berggren as well, also being recalled. So both those players back up, Ernie down to the minors to make some space. Now, staying with Detroit for a moment, I know a lot of people are wondering what's going on with Red Wings forward Jacob Verena. Of course, Verena earlier this season left the Red Wings to deal with some personal situations. He was in the player assistance program, which is, of course, is a joint effort by the NHL and NHLPA to help players in need like that. He went through the program, has been released. So obviously we assume he's kind of recovered and gotten through what it was he was dealing with. And after going down to the American Hockey League on a conditioning stint, many thought he would be recalled, but instead he was put on waivers, which kind of took a lot of people by surprise. Of course, he was then later assigned to the American Hockey League affiliate after not getting picked up. But over time, people are wondering, why is Verena not getting recalled? I know his game has improved down there, at least it seems to have. But at this point, we can expect that not to happen. It seems like he's played his last game in Detroit. I don't know the full extent. We don't have all the details of exactly what's kind of gone on here. There certainly seems to be very much a difference of opinion or philosophy or something on this case. Certainly the team and the player are not seeing eye to eye, and it doesn't seem like they're in any hurry to bring him back to Detroit. They're trying to facilitate a trade if possible. I mean, he does still have another year of his contract, so it might prove difficult without having, much NHL games this year to kind of show that he can still play. So I'm not sure if they're going to get what they want here, but if he's not traded by the deadline, then I would suspect he'll finish the season in the minors and most likely be a buyout candidate for the offseason. At least that's where things are trending right now, but it's possible he could either sign elsewhere in the NHL or possibly head back to Europe. I've seen some rumors about playing in Europe as well as early as next season or maybe even this year. I don't know if he'll ever get to the point that they decide to put the contract on unconditional waivers. I can't see that happening because he would be giving up a lot of money and it'd be a big help to the team, of course. So that seems unlikely scenario that would play out right now, but just kind of an odd scenario. We don't really know the full ins and outs of everything he was dealing with, of course, because of privacy in the player assistance program. But after getting through that, you think that, he'd go back to the NHL, but I'm not sure if it's just a matter of them not being comfortable that he's ready to play and able to contribute, or if there's more to that story. We'll have to wait and see. Now, speaking of things and stories, you kind of wonder if there's more to the story. We could be seeing more coming out, and it's hard to say. We haven't heard the end of the Troy Mann situation with the Ottawa Senators. Of course, in case you missed the video here in the last few days, the Ottawa Senators, late late in an evening at that, it was like I think it was a Thursday or Friday evening at like 10, 11 o'clock at night, almost midnight Eastern time, put out an announcement that their Belleville Senators coach has been fired and the assistant coach has taken over. It just seemed to be really odd. You don't see a lot of AHL coaches fired mid-season. It's pretty rare And if they do leave the team, it's usually due to promotion and heading to the NHL club or to another NHL opportunity. Not like this. This is rare. Usually those situations happen in the offseason. That team has been decimated with injuries, a lot more players being recalled than you thought. So certainly not the coach's fault that the team was lower in the standings, but they put out some information kind of suggested that there was a misalignment of values between Belleville and Ottawa, and they had to get kind of back on track, back in sync, so to speak. There was information from Claire Hanna of TSN saying she was told by sources that there was some information leaked by Mann regarding the NHL Senators' pre-scouting information to other NHL clubs. Now, there's some that are disputing that. I know there's a lot of different media around Ottawa that are still digging into the story. Some aren't convinced that's entirely true. And if it's not, then you can expect this won't be the last we hear of it. I know Jeff Merrick and Elliot Friedman discussed this a bit on their 32 Thoughts podcast as well. And they certainly made the same kind of assumption that if those allegations are not true, then I would suspect Troy Mann to lawyer up and fight this for a wrongful dismissal suit. And, after all these strides that the Senators have made, from a PR perspective and everything, it seemed like during the Melnick era, the last number of years, there was always, every once in a while, something would pop up in the news just to make the organization not look good. Sometimes it was a player, sometimes it was management, it was all different stuff. And now this has been a long time, and things have been trending in such a positive direction, both on the ice, off the ice. It's been a long time since we've had any drama around the team, and it just seems like it's not a great time. There's never a good time for that, of course, but interesting to see if he fights it, because if he doesn't, then he's kind of admitting that he was in the wrong. So it's really odd to say, and I just don't know that this is the last we've heard of this situation, so we'll have to stay tuned for that. Speaking of some top prospects, we got word that the Arizona Coyotes are sending back one of their top prospects on a high draft pick from a couple of years ago, Dylan Guenther. He's going to make his way back to the Western Hockey League instead of staying in the NHL. After the World Juniors were over, he went back to the NHL, but now they're ready to send him back to finish the year at junior. Of course, he is now a member of the Seattle Thunderbirds, of course, which that Seattle Western Hockey League team is pretty stacked. I mean, they've made a number of acquisitions, and here recently around the trade deadline, and this team has got to be one of the strongest in Canada, and I would think one of the top teams that will be in contention for not only the Western Hockey League Championship, but the Memorial Cup as well. They now have 6 players that played on the Canadian World Junior Championship team, a number of first-round picks. Besides Dylan Guenther of Arizona, who's a great goal scorer, they also have Brad Lambert, one of the top prospects of the Winnipeg Jets, who played for the Finnish team with the World Juniors. Of course, they have Kevin Korchinski, Cole Dock, Nolan Allen. They also have Thomas Millets, the goalie from Team Canada. They have an overage player, Luke Prokop, who was solid for the Edmonton Oil Kings in his previous junior career. So certainly, that's absolute stacked team, and they get even better by getting Dylan Guenther. The Seattle Western Hockey League team is going to be a team to watch here if you're interested in watching prospects or the playoff rounds of junior hockey in Canada. It's going to be a phenomenal team to keep an eye on. The Vancouver Canucks announced today that they're changing up their leadership group, of course, with Captain Bo Horvat no longer with the organization after being traded to the New York Islanders. They decided they're not going to name a new captain right away. They now have a group of 4 players that will all wear A's, at least for the remainder of this season. Obviously, things will be reevaluated from there, but of course, for right now, Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes are getting promoted to get those A's on their jersey, which is well-deserved. JT Miller already has an A. He'll keep his, and Oliver Ekman-Larsson will have an A on his jersey too. So you get a couple of veterans and a couple of younger players mixing it up. But I think many people kind of suspect that Pettersson kind of has to be the next new captain of the Canucks. But I think before they go down that road, they're going to want to get him signed on a longer-term deal. This offseason coming up, he'll be eligible to sign an extension in Vancouver, which is going to be one of the more important negotiations and contracts that organization gets done. And I think we'll see a similar scenario like we see with Brady Tkachuk in Ottawa. A little bit different age, a little bit different timing, but same sort of scenario that they wanted to come to terms on a long-term deal before they slapped a C on his jersey, which only makes sense. You don't want to have a captain like Bo Horvat leave after several years of holding that distinction and then have somebody else take it over for one season and then be gone again. It's a position within the team that's important to have some consistency with. So we'll see, but at least the Canucks have their new leadership group in place, and we'll see how this works out. Obviously, I know Pedersen was recently interviewed on the 32 Thoughts podcast by Friedman and Merrick. Made some interesting comments on JT Miller. I don't think he meant any harm by doing so, but he did say, he used the word like hothead when describing him, but also clarified that it might not be the best term to use, that he's, emotional and, just a really strong desire to win. And that, he said that obviously they've had their differences on days when it comes to some of those things we've seen, but at the same time, somebody he really respects and a teammate he certainly appreciates having on his side. So it's certainly an interesting interview. If you haven't had a chance to already listen, I recommend you check it out. Now, onto the trade section of the video. Patrick Kane, of course, could be one of the biggest names moved at the deadline. He and Jonathan Toews have been in the rumor mill for the better part of a year, ever since we've known that it's unlikely that they'll re-sign with the Blackhawks and that they're on expiring deals that have been, inked for a long-term basis. The Hawks are in a whole new spot right now with where the organization is at, and there's a pretty good chance both these veterans move on in one capacity or another. There's still some hope and some possibility, I guess, that Patrick Kane does stay in Chicago on a short-term, cheaper contract than he's making right now, but I really don't know that it makes the most sense for the team. But at the same time, they do have to have some veterans, some quality players around to work with these young players that are going to be getting prominent roles in the organization, given where this rebuild is heading. But Kane does publicly acknowledge that he's been approached by his agent with a number of trade offers and teams that are interested in acquiring him before the NHL trade deadline. So obviously we already know that teams are interested, and we've heard lots of rumblings about teams like Colorado, the New York Rangers. To some degree, Boston's been in and out of that rumor mill as well. I think they're less likely to be in there. But like the Rangers, Avalanche, probably a couple of the bigger names. I wouldn't completely rule out a team like Vegas as well, especially now that Mark Stone's out. They have a bigger pool of LTIR money to work with. So there's certainly all those teams and more could be in the mix for Patrick Kane. Hard to say what his future holds and where he'll end up exactly. But there's also some concern. I know there's been some reports by some NHL reporters saying that he needs hip surgery, and a lot of people are aware of that, which is the issue he's been dealing with this year. His production is down, and that they might be cautious on a trade given where he's at. Not that he can't play. He's still a very talented guy with all kinds of abilities that could help a contender be that much stronger. But if he's not 100% and he needs the surgery, it could be buyer beware situation that, could backfire on him if he's not able to contribute at the normal level you would expect from a guy like Patrick Kane. But we'll see. At least he's acknowledged that he needs to talk to his agent and make a decision, because there's plenty of teams lined up hoping he'll agree to waive his full no-move clause. Now, there's also some generation of interest around Flyers forward Kevin Hayes. Of course, he still has 3 years on his deal at $7 million, so it's not going to be an easy trade. It's going to be difficult to pull off. But Sam Carchidi of Philly Hockey Now has acknowledged that, according to his sources, there's at least one team that has serious interest in Kevin Hayes. He's put up some real good numbers this season, and mostly playing on left wing, getting top-line minutes, of course, which certainly helps his cause. But obviously, like I said, that contract, it's tricky. I mean, he brings a lot of experience, good size, not the greatest skater, never really has been, but certainly somebody who can help a contender, good on a power play, different areas, that he could play center, could play wing. So he could be a versatile forward. There had been some rumblings earlier in the year, maybe about Boston. Of course, that would be like a homecoming for him. So I don't know if there's firm, serious interest there from the Bruins or not, but they were previously mentioned. There's no mention in this report from Carchidi about what team it is, but there is one team that's showing significant interest, and that they're trying to talk to the Flyers and see what they can work out. But it's going to be difficult to do, given his contract, how much we can say for certain. And could we see a big trade between Ottawa and Arizona? There's still a lot of talk about what's going to happen with Jacob Chychrun in Arizona. We know he wants to be moved. We know the team wants to move him. It's been an ongoing thing for like a year plus now. And Edson Carter, first former NHL player and current NHL broadcaster and analyst who works for a combination of TNT and for Sportsnet as well in Canada, a number of broadcasting he does, has proposed a trade between the Coyotes and the Senators, and I wanted to get your thoughts to see what you thought they should do. Essentially, here's the breakdown. He recommends a trade of Jacob Chychrun and goalie Kirill Bejmelka to the Senators in exchange for young goalie prospect Matt Sogard, Tyler Klevin, who's a solid prospect defenseman at the University of North Dakota, forward Zach Ostapchuk, who of course is a solid prospect who played on Canada's World Junior Hockey team this year, the World Juniors, and Ridley Gregg, who has been recently called up and looks like he has top 6 center potential written all over him. But of course, when they have Stützle and Norris and Shane Pinto for that matter, he might be kind of left playing the third line duty, might not even play center. And as much as I know a lot of Sens fans would not want to see him moved, he could be a piece that they could afford to move to get significant upgrades elsewhere. So obviously moving Kleber would make sense in the deal, given that he would likely be a third pair left shot D in the next year or so, should he not be traded to stay with the Senators organization. So obviously having Chychrun there, along with guys like Thomas Chabot, Eric Brandstrom, others, that there's really not a lot of room for him from that regard, so it would make sense to include him. Sogard would be tricky. He's highly regarded, the Danish goalie. He's a real solid prospect goaltender, and it's just, you want to be careful with that. You want to regret that. But Vejmelka has been a really good goalie on a weak team, so to me, it might be a trade to help them more now, more than later. And they still have a guy like Muriel in the prospect system for a solid prospect goalie as well. But they've moved on some other goalies, and it's just something that you want to be careful with, right? So Ostapchuk, Kleven, Gregg, and Sogard for Vejmelka and Chychrun. To me, I think there's a lot to like there from the Ottawa perspective. They both get, a solid top 4 defenseman that they really need to make that blue line much better. And at the same time, they get Vejmelka, who could really secure their goaltending situation for the future. Sogard would be not with them anymore, which is really unfortunate. But like I said, they have other goalies that they could look to. It would be risky though, that's for sure. But at least you're getting Vejmelka, who is more of a proven goalie, where Sogard is still not quite at that point in his NHL career. So the Coyotes get themselves a solid prospect defenseman, a solid prospect center, a solid prospect winger, and a solid prospect goalie. They get one of each goaltending or each 4 positions, which is really pretty solid return. But we know that for Chychrun alone, they were looking for at least 3 assets of a first-round quality, and they would certainly kind of get that between Gregg, Ostapchuk, and Sogard, even though they're not exactly first-rounders, but Gregg was, but the other ones were a little bit later. But they certainly increased their value as prospects since then as well, so be interesting to see what happens. I'm not sure really if this deal will go down exactly like this, but I do see a lot to like for both clubs. I just think from Ottawa's perspective, certainly a little bit of risk moving guys like Sogard and Gregg. They might prefer to throw in a first-round pick and maybe a different prospect instead. I don't know if that would still be as appealing for the Coyotes. It would make a lot of sense if they're going to trade Vejmelka, that they get a prospect goalie in return. So let me know your thoughts on that potential trade and everything else discussed today down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.